In the time of the Maccabees, the Hanukkah, you have Antiochus, this horrible king, who comes into Israel and he sets an altar, he sets an abomination on the Temple Mount. This is where we get the abomination desolation. This is the foreshadow. This is first called the abomination desolation, and then Jesus, Messiah, refers to it when he talks about what will happen. So in a sense, this is a shadow of what's going to happen later. The whole Hanukkah picture. So you have Antiochus, he defiles the Temple Mount, he desecrates God's sanctuary, he slaughters a pig, and then he sets up this abomination, which is a shadow of what's coming. What was the abomination? Well, we know the abomination, it was an idol, and it was an idol of the god Zeus. Okay, the idol of the god Zeus, the chief of the Greek gods. And he set it up, we just talked about the altar being restored. He set it up on the altar. The Maccabees, finally, they win, they get back the temple, they cleanse the temple, they take away the idol, they cleanse it all, but there's something deeper going on in this war, and this goes to the end times ultimately. But you have the god Baal, we mentioned. Baal in Babylonian becomes Bel. Bel becomes Belos. Belos is linked to Zeus. In other words, these are just like masks of the same principality. Now something else happens. When the Maccabees win that war and they take down that altar of Zeus and they cleanse the temple, it's almost like Satan comes back. And and the same time when they take that abomination off the temple, he causes another altar of Zeus to go up in the ancient world. It's what was on the Temple Mount, but now it's a gigantic altar of Zeus. And where was it? It was in the place called Pergamon. Pergamon. A gigantic altar of Zeus on Pergamon. Now, when you read the book of Revelation, and it speaks about Pergamon, and when you read in Revelation, it says Pergamon, the place of the throne of Satan. Oh. When it talks about the throne of Satan, it's Pergamon. Why? Because in Pergamon, you have this gigantic pagan altar, the altar of Zeus, which is part of this war going on, continuously going on. Now, here's the thing. You have this war. What happened to that altar? What happened to the throne of Satan? This was there. The Greeks were in charge of it first, and they were the ones at that time that were persecuting Israel in the days of Hanukkah. Then the Romans took over, and then they destroyed the temple. They come against the Jewish people. They come against the gospel, the throne of Satan. But what happens is then the gospel starts spreading to the Roman Empire. And people start turning away from the gods and the altars. So the altar of Zeus or of Pergamon, the altar of Pergamon or the throne of Satan starts falling into disrepair. It starts kind of becoming underground. It will stay that way, dormant, until the modern age, until our time. As we watch, as the world, as Europe and they start throwing off the gospel, in Europe especially, what happens is a man comes to Pergamon at the end of the 19th century, and he starts uncovering the altar or the throne of Satan. And he sends the pieces of the altar, the first pieces, back to his homeland. The year is 1871, the beginning of the unearthing of the throne. And this links back to the abomination desolation. So here he does that. The same year, now the enemy hates the Jewish people, we know that.
Yes.
He's furious to destroy the Jewish people.
Absolutely.
Well, this 1871, when the first pieces are unearthed of the throne of Satan, that 1871 marks the same year that anti-Semitism begins in the world. The birth of the modern hatred of the Jewish people starts as the throne of Satan is being revived. And the place it starts, anti-Semitism, is the land of Germany. Germany is born, Germany becomes a nation in the year 1871, the same year as anti-Semitism is born, the same year of the altar of the throne of Satan, and where did those pieces go? The man who started uncovering the throne of Satan was German. He sends the pieces back to Germany. They start digging up the altar, a big excavation in the year 1878. They transport the entire altar, the throne of Satan, to Germany. Germany, they start reconstructing the altar. This gigantic altar of Pergamon. The throne of Satan in Berlin. Now, they finish it in the year 1889. 1889, a baby is born in a Germanic bordering land. The baby is Adolf Hitler. When the throne of Satan reappears in the world, Adolf Hitler appears in the world. Same year, same time, and the next part is going to be linked to this life, Adolf Hitler, and this altar in Berlin coming together. When they come together, something's going to happen. So what happens now is they start building in Germany. They start building a big, like monument, like a museum to house the altar, but it's inadequate. So in the year 1910, they start a massive building to house basically the throne of Satan, which is the altar of Pergamon. The Bible says it. So they're doing this there, and as they're doing this, Germany, Berlin, that's where the altar, the throne of Satan is. As they do this, the greatest calamity in human history up to that date comes upon the world of destruction. World War I comes upon, based on Berlin, where the throne of Satan is. So this massive millions and millions of people are destroyed in this massive thing. The throne of Satan's in Berlin. They keep building this house to house the throne. Finally, they're finished in the year 1930. They open up the altar of Pergamon in Berlin. They open it up for people coming from all over, multitudes of Germans coming. 1930 is a turning point year. That same year, there's an election, and the Nazi Party goes from the smallest party in Germany to the number 2 party in Germany. It's their big victory the same year as the altar. It's only going to be a matter of time before they take over Germany now. And what happens is, so by 1933 and 34, Hitler becomes the dictator of Germany. And here in the sentence, so now Hitler is in Berlin, the city of the throne of Satan. They're to all come together. Now, one of the first things that Hitler does is he says, I want a pedestal. He wants a pedestal. He wants a stage that he will speak to the world, and he'll say, he'll do what he's going to do. So he commissions, it's going to be in Nuremberg. Nuremberg is where they have all the big, massive Nazi rallies. And Hitler there is going to speak. He commissions an architect to build him his pedestal to speak to the world in Germany. The architect is Albert Speer. Albert Speer visited the altar of Satan in Berlin. And when Hitler asked him to build Hitler a pedestal, he builds it based on the throne of Satan.
Wow.
So the Nazis, not only now in the days of Antiochus, and I'm just going to share a little bit of this, but the days of Antiochus, when Antiochus set up that altar of Zeus on the Temple Mount, is really Satan doing it, he was doing it to paganize. He wanted Israel to become pagan. He starts a war against the Jews, starts persecuting them, burning the Bible, and killing them. A war against the Jews is linked to that altar there. Well, it didn't paganize Israel because they revolted. But now that altar, that pagan altar, is in Germany, and Germany is going to become a pagan nation with that altar there. That demonic altar, Germany is going to become a demonic nation, at the time of Hitler. So here they build Hitler this gigantic, colossal version of the altar of Pergamon in Nuremberg. And it's basically the throne of Satan. So every time when you see Hitler speaking in those massive things, he's standing on the altar of Zeus. He's standing on the altar of Pergamon, the gigantic reproduction. He's standing on the throne of Satan, literally. The throne is where a king speaks. Well, this is the throne of Satan. Through Hitler, it's the enemy speaking to the world.
Yes.
And the enemy hates Israel, wants to destroy the Jewish people with all his might to wipe it, because if he can destroy them, he can stop God's plan. That's what it's all about. So what happens is, it's in Nuremberg, on the throne of Satan, when Hitler speaks, from that city come the Nuremberg laws. The Nuremberg laws are the beginning of the Holocaust. from the same city of the throne of Satan. And the first time the word final solution will ever be uttered publicly will be by Hitler in Nuremberg on the days when he's speaking on the throne of Satan. That's where the Holocaust begins. It is the Satan. Now, there is so much to this. I'm only going to share this much now. There is so much to this. But the point is, God is real, the enemy is real, and that we're in a real fight, a real warfare. And this is even linked to the abomination, desolation, which is coming on the world, the spirit of Antichrist. In fact, this altar, we talk about things affecting, this thing has been affecting world history from that time even up to the Cold War, up till now. I'll share more, later or another time. But the point here is this. We are in a real war, and we have to know that. There is an enemy. Every believer has an enemy here. And the thing is, the enemy comes in like a flood. But the thing is that in the end days, he is furious with Israel, and he's furious with the people of God. That's why he's going first. But the thing is that it's a good thing to have the enemy as your enemy, because it means you have the friend as your friend. If the enemy is coming against you and you're in God's will, be encouraged, be strong, be more encouraged, because it means that's how great the purposes of God are. The enemy tried to wipe out the Jewish people. When? Just before they were about to be resurrected, and all prophecy was to come true when Israel was to become a nation. So the more the enemy comes against, it means that there's something good coming, something big coming. Wow. But we have to be strong, and greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. True, we are on the winning side, but we're in a fight, and we are on the winning side.